Hello, Liz. It's good to see you today and to
Hello.
be chatting again about, life, the universe, and everything, and all the matters that wild, wise women might come up against.
I love the name of our podcast.
So do I.
It's just perfect. It feels just perfect for what we're about.
Yeah. Took us a little while, didn't it? We had all these, we talked to AI, we talked to each other, we kept lists, and then one day it just appeared and as I think this might be it. And we both liked it as much.
Yeah, I love the way that occurs. So yeah,
Yeah, it was
that's
beautiful.
fun.
So we were thinking about an interesting topic that is, I think, pretty much affects any human being, but it's the topic of forgiveness, and it's layered and textured, and we wanted to kind of explore this idea of what does it really mean, and what is there to forgive, and how does it what's going on? I think. What's going on? I think that's a good way to enter this. And what we started to see was that it's almost as if there are two places that give you the idea that forgiveness is needed. And it's like there's this place that we want to call the ego, that sort of something's been done to me and I need to, I know it's right that I should forgive this, and I'm going to forgive. And then there's this more when you come from love, what does forgiveness look like? And I
Mm.
feel like that's a very interesting exploration. And also people have lots of what does forgiveness actually mean? So I just thought we'd have a chat. And I know you've been thinking a lot about this. So what have you been
Mm.
thinking about forgiveness, Liz?
Yeah, well, I suppose starting off, it's like, what is forgiveness?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, as I've reflected on it, it's almost like, something happens. There's a maybe a rush.
Okay. Oh, sorry, my mistake. Continue.
Okay,
Something
so
happened.
I'll start that again. So something happens, and then there's this rush of, I don't know, anger or frustration or resentment, which seems to like eat you up. And so forgiveness is the conscious release of that. I mean, that's kind of, I guess, as good as anything I've got. And I was raised in the Christian tradition. So forgiveness was something that was talked about a lot in church. I went to church pretty much every week until I was in my late teens. And so I guess my sense of what forgiveness was then and what forgiveness is now has shifted. And I'd love to have your take on this too. But at the time, it felt like there were things that people did that were bad, and forgiveness was, you would say, I forgive you to someone. And somehow that kind of wiped the slate clean, and you could go back onto an even keel again. It kind of felt a bit transactional. It's like you do something bad, I feel a bit angry, but I'm the kind of the better person, so I'll say I forgive you, even though I still think what you did was pretty bad and it shouldn't have happened. So
Mm.
I guess that was a bit of a tangle I got into in how I saw forgiveness. I'm going to talk about how I see forgiveness now, but I just wondered if that resonates for you or whether you had a different take on it.
I grew up in the Dutch Reformed Church, which
Oh,
was a Protestant religion, and we were like a clan, cult. I don't know. It dominated our entire lives. So, yes, I was definitely taught about forgiveness in the model that you describe. And I think many people in the Western world have that notion of it as well. And the biblical, I'm not sure what the Bible actually says about it, but that notion of you forgive about a sin.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's probably how I saw it for quite a while. And I'm seeing something different. And I kind of this is not me saying this is how it is and I'm now like this is what I think forgiveness is. It's like I want a conversation with you because I'm still kind of finding my way with this whole thing.
Mm.
And I guess in a way, what you said at the beginning about forgiveness coming from the ego or from love is probably a really great way to summarize how I see this. Because for me, when I feel that rush of anger, frustration, insecurity, that now I know having done the three principles and inside out understanding and explored that as my foundation for the last, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 years, now I absolutely know that when I feel that unsteadiness, that rush, it's coming from my ego. Like it's coming from that unstable, it's coming from unstable ground. And that's really helpful for me to know. And I didn't know that before. I used to think there were things that people could do that would make you feel a certain way.
Mm.
So, but now I don't see that in the same kind of way.
Mm.
So for me, and we'll talk more about this in a minute, but I want to come to you to get your take on this. But, for me, there's something about um, standing in love and having an understanding or compassion for what's happened, even though you don't then kind of wipe the slate clean and say, that was fine, I condone that behavior. It's not that at all. It's much more of realizing for me that when I stand in love, forgiveness, that resentment and anger was almost like a burrowing parasite in me, like caused
Mm.
me pain.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I come from a place of love, it's like that dissolves. That's the best way I can put it. And I see something more compassionate in what's happened. Um, so I am not lost in those feelings in the same kind of way. Does that
Mm.
make any sense?
It makes total sense to
Oh, good.
me. Um, what I'm hearing is, if I could just pull out like the essence of what I heard in that, it's really it's our experience of resentment and anger that is causing our suffering. And I think Socrates said something like, you swallow the poison when you hold on to your resentment and anger and you don't forgive, or forgiveness is not there. You are swallowing the bitter pill, and that is poisoning you. So forgiveness ultimately isn't really about the other. It is about finding peace with what is so that anger and resentment doesn't eat you alive. And that's I think where love comes in, because anger and resentment don't live alongside love. They don't, and maybe anger occasionally there can be that pure love, but let's say resentment doesn't live alongside the space of love. And it's like love is I'm just going to go biblical now. Love is patient, love is kind. Love is willing to allow the humanity of the other, and uh sort of see the log in your own eye before you judge the speck in the other's eyes. We've got the same references, haven't we? But love love is the dissolver of all of that. And ultimately, and I don't know if you actually said this, but it looks to me like a separate person who can be aggrieved and resentful is a person who is coming from their ego, their identity of, this is who I am, this is who you are, this is what is okay with me, this is not okay with me. I'm not talking about boundaries. I'm just talking about the ego. When the ego runs the show, there is lots of opportunity for resentment. When love runs the show, there's still the awareness, there's still the knowing of what is happening, and you're still not going to let somebody smash you in the face. That there's still kind of a response to that, but it's the resentment's missing. So it's not like you don't take action. It's not like you don't do something that would keep you safe, but it's that it's where you're coming from. So now it's my turn to say, does that make sense to you, Liz?
Yeah, no, I completely get that. Or what I'm hearing anyway, or what's really landing for me is it again comes back to this: is where is it coming from?
Mm.
And I absolutely totally want to make clear that in no way are we saying that there is unacceptable behavior that is made acceptable by having this conversation about forgiveness. Like, that is not what this conversation is about. this, for me, what I've noticed is that as I stand in that place of love, and of course our tagline is holding the line for love,
Right.
is that when I stand in that line, on that line, I feel empowered. I
Yeah.
feel empowered because I'm coming from a different place. And the thing with this is that boundaries that maybe I would have discounted become clearer when I'm in that space of love. Like, because
Yeah.
I understand. It's almost like when you're a parent loving a child, you have clear boundaries about keeping them safe. Like,
Mm.
it's coming from a loving place, and it can't. And so boundaries come from a loving place. But I also just want to make the point that you know, when I'm in that space of love, I have that clarity, but I'm human. And so just like yesterday, as you know, I'm a teacher on Insight Timer. And someone gave me, I mean, I get usually really great reviews, and somebody gave me a review that was, I don't know, it was just off, it was a bit barbed. And I felt that rush of ego and anger and wanting to put that person down and put them back in their box. And didn't they know? And don't they know the environment on Insight Timer? And I really got on my high horse in a rush of emotion. And and so for me, it's like it's not acting from that place. So for me, that if I had responded from that place, I would have responded from unsettled, unstable ground.
Mm.
It for me, it was about coming from a good place.
Mm.
And and we talked about using AI before. Um, and I knew that any response I wrote once I'd settled might have a barb in it. So I
Mm.
wrote the response that I wanted to say and I put it through AI, and we had a kind of a conversation about what may or may not be good to say. But that for me is coming from a place of love because I felt that a boundary had been breached. I wanted not to just ignore this.
Mm.
And yet I also wanted not to stir up the ego with the other person, to come from a place of love. So for
Mm.
me, that was an experience of that rush of resentment coming from love and holding a boundary. It's a
Mm.
small example, but it was kind of like forgiveness encapsulated in probably about 2 or 3 hours of my life.
Well, it's holding the line for love when love isn't immediately available. It's like choosing anyway. And that's what I hear you did. And in this occasion, AI was the tool that enabled that. But it was I know enough to know this is not, I'm not sure if this is fully coming from love. I want to come from love. And a boundary's been crossed. And how do I express myself in alignment with this is the holding part of the line for love. Sometimes you've got to bring yourself to hold it versus it just being there, and I really like that nuance. It's such an everyday example of, finding the right tool in the right moment that helps you to hold the line for love. So I think it's beautiful, uh, small, but yet somehow exactly right example.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
got one as well, actually, which I was working with. I've been working with somebody on a project, and one of their roles is to help. So there's principles of how we behave on this project, ground rules, behavioral stuff, and then there's practical about what we're trying to achieve. And this person's role is to facilitate and hold the space for all of that. And I just want to remind everyone that on the previous call, I talked about being in a dark night of the soul. So I'm just going to say maybe I wasn't my best self and my most aware self in this situation on this call about this project. However, this person was fantastic at holding space and listening, much like you, Liz, very respectful around honoring people where they're at. So not really a fixer, and really quite, and had been on this project really fantastic at critical moments where things were very bumpy. They were a very good facilitator. So my experience was they're great at what they do. They absolutely have got this. And it kind of doesn't matter how I am on this, in this project, if I'm not doing great, they'll be able to hold it. And then I started to feel in the call that they were dropping the ball in every way. They were not structuring the agenda in a way that I thought it should be structured, because that was common sense to me. They were not addressing the emotional temperature of the room. They were not reviewing in the way I thought it should be reviewed. There was sort of a lot of, what is happening here? This isn't right. And I felt, well, I want to say I felt abandoned, but that made me feel resentful. So there was this, and I think we can all experience those feelings of feeling abandoned and therefore resentful that somebody who we thought we could count on abandoned us, right? That's how it looked. And at that moment in time, Liz, it absolutely looked like there was something to forgive, something to deal with, and something to then get on my higher ground and forgive. Now, I'm sure it's obvious. This is probably coming from that ego place that we talked about. And I actually had a post call. So it was in a group setting. So after the group setting, we had a post call, and I said, can you just explain to me what the hell happened here and why you were like you were? And I was on this and had this impression. And I was kind of gentle at first. Can you help me understand? And they were still not really explaining anything. Eventually, what was revealed was that it is true. They had felt that they weren't, was this the right place for them to be holding this kind of conversation? They questioned themselves. Which at first my ego was right. I was like, yes, I knew it. I knew they weren't doing their job, But then I really listened to what they were saying about why they didn't feel this was what they should, why they were feeling uncertain. And we ended the call. And there wasn't forgiveness, but there was a hearing of two people and what their experience. Because, you have the same experience, the same events, and then two different experiences. So there was a hearing. 3 hours later, I realized there was nothing to forgive, except that I had to ask her forgiveness. Isn't that outrageous? I saw that to go that far that way and then that way. I saw that I was in a low place, and I had these ways of behaving in that low place that were challenging for the group. And I had expected her to meet that because she'd met it before in the past. And I had it, and then I realized that was an unrealistic expectation. That was my epiphany. It wasn't that she was in the wrong. It was that my expectation, I mean, it was not ridiculous, but it was mine, and it was not reasonable. And I suddenly saw it. And then 5 hours later, again, I sent her a voice message explaining what I'd seen and acknowledging it and acknowledging my part. And I think that it's so interesting because our thoughts and feelings can change. And when there's suddenly nothing to forgive because we understand ourselves and the other in a new way, it's not even like you have to forgive. It's just like there's nothing to forgive.
There's nothing there. That's
right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, what I love and what you just said there is that, and this is kind of at the root of what I'm seeing for myself, is that I have expectations about how people should behave.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they don't behave like that,
Mm-hmm.
I feel a level of anger and frustration that I feel is appropriate, dependent on the behavior that they didn't meet, which I'd made up in the first place.
Exactly.
So it's kind of, it's me making up a story and then getting frustrated and angry because somebody didn't make the bar in the story that I created. And I really love what you're saying, is because when you see through that,
mm-hmm.
There's nothing to forgive.
Hmm.
If you want to know if you're in ego, who's the victim in this piece? If you feel that you are right and they are wrong, you're in ego. And it's just useful to know because I don't trust myself when I'm in that space. I don't trust myself. And when you find that you understand that people are doing the best they can do with the thinking they've got in the moment, like when you deeply
Mm,
understand that and you see that at
mm,
some point,
mm,
there is, like you say, almost a dissolving. It's not like you've forgiven someone. It's
mm,
almost like the very thing that you thought needed at an hour ago to be forgiven is no longer there. It's like you see
mm,
right through it. It's like you see through an
mm,
illusion.
mm.
So that's kind of what I heard and what you said.
I love this seeing through element because ultimately, and this is our orientation, this is how we see it, you know, we are love. When we're aligned with our soul, our essence, just being in the moment, we are love. And I think they're in that place, and we sometimes we lose sight of that and we're not living from that, and that's why we try and hold the line for it. We stand for it in a way. That's what we're saying with that. So even when we don't, we stand for it. But I think, yes, that's right. When we in our hearts, everything looks different, and when we're in our heads, we can have our rules and our ideas. But there was something in what you said that really sparked something in me around how we see the other. And I want to really speak to that. And this is, again, you know, my personal perspective, and I don't know if you fully share it or don't share it, but this is how it looks to me. There is no other. There ultimately is one conscious energy, and there's me in my, as I like to call it, skin bag, and you over there in yours, looking separate. But the energy between us is one. And on a universal consciousness level, we are all connected. And that is not actually an idea or woo anymore. It is actually science now, that there is one energetic field, and it's called lots of different things, but it is the field of energy that is conscious and intelligent, and of which we're all part. So when I look at you, the other, whoever you are, uh, I project my thoughts onto you. It's really me that I'm seeing over there. There's an element of meanness over there in you. It's all one, really. And I really feel that when we look only at the other, we don't. So let me put it this way. I'm often, when I'm feeling the need to forgive or feeling resentful, judging the other person because of their behavior. So I'm looking outside at their behavior. But when it's me, I'm taking into account my feelings. And so I'm not judging my behavior in the same way. I'm looking at, well, I had this good reason or for shouting or whatever it was. So what I'm really seeing about forgiveness is that I need to see over there in the other what is, it's like an understanding of what it is that has them be and do what they're being and doing. And let's say they're feeling lost, or they're feeling confused, or they're feeling insecure, and so they did this thing, or they're feeling away from home in some way. And I'm like, oh, what is me lost and confused and feeling away from home? And I actually recognize that place. And there's a me that is that I can be in those places. And I find that when I can see what it is to be human in you and me, like what it is to be away from home, what it is to be insecure, I can meet that part of myself in me, and suddenly there's nothing to forgive, because we're all insecure sometimes. We're all away from home. We're all lost. Now, they may do this thing when they're lost, and I might do this other thing, but fundamentally, it's the human condition, and there is no other. There's just our experience of not being at home, and we all share that. So that was a long one, but what do you think, Liz? Does that resonate?
Yeah, well, I kind of feel that this is maybe a really good topic for a conversation,
Ah, okay.
which is this whole area of who we are truly, like who or what are we
Oh,
truly,
okay.
and the illusion of the human experience. That for me feels very rich to explore. Maybe not at the end of a conversation now, but maybe in the future.
Yeah,
And I just feel that what we're exploring here, as always, for me, comes back to love.
yeah.
And it's about loving myself, forgiving myself when I maybe feel like maybe my behavior wasn't that good. It's about coming back to love. I don't have any other tricks up my sleeve. All I have is that if something is off, it's because I've forgotten to come back to love. I've forgotten to hold the line for love.
I
Um,
think that's a really good answer. Sorry, did I interrupt you
I
there?
was just going to say, and for me, that's kind of underlines what I feel forgiveness is.
I was just so in agreement. I got excited there. But really, I think I know when my heart is open, and I know when my heart is closed. And that's it. We all know that. We all know the feelings, the sensations in the body. It's that simple. Open heart, love; closed heart, something else. And what I would say about the closed heart that I've seen, that when my heart is closed, I've lost some kind of sense of compassion for myself. And that's the place to start. So that
Nice.
might be, yeah. That's been a very juicy, rich, and eye-opening. Didn't know where that would go. So that was
Really
fun.
enjoyed that. And I really love it that we are just exploring. We're not telling anyone this is the way it is. We're just having such nourishing conversations of curiosity. And I really appreciate that. So thank you.
You're very welcome. I enjoy them too. Thanks, Liz.